Number, the day my world shattered. The security footage timestamp read 2:47 p.m. October 15th. The day I was in New York, the day everything was stolen from me. I sat frozen in my studio at midnight, watching the grainy black and white video play on my laptop screen. My sister Vivienne walked through my studio door, followed by a man with professional camera equipment. That part I expected. What I didn't expect was what happened at 3:23 p.m. My mother walked in. Not to stop Vivienne. Not to question what she was doing. My mother walked straight to my grandmother's drafting table, the one I built with my own hands, and began directing the photo shoot. She moved my vintage armchair into position. She adjusted the lighting. She handed Vivienne my design portfolios and told her exactly how to pose. I could read my mother's lips on the silent footage. Perfect. Sweetheart, you look like you belong here. My hands shook as I pressed pause, freezing the frame on my mother's face. She was smiling, proud, the way she had never smiled at me in 30 years. That was 4 hours ago. Since then, I had discovered that my biggest client fired me, that Southern Living Design published a feature article claiming my sister as Georgia's rising design star, and that every single project in my portfolio, including my college capstone, was now credited to Vivienne Vance. 3 years of my life, stolen in 3 days. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew could help me destroy them all. If you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever had someone steal your life's work, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Because what I'm about to tell you is how I burned down my entire family to get justice. Leave a comment if you want to know what happened to my sister. Trust me, she got exactly what she deserved. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare began, and how I made them all pay. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Elle Vance, and for as long as I can remember, I was the invisible daughter. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, more in the quiet, soul-crushing way that happens when parents simply don't see you as valuable. My father, Richard Vance, owned a successful commercial real estate firm in Savannah. My mother, Susan, had been a pageant queen in her youth and never quite let go of that identity. They were the type of people who valued appearance over substance, connections over character, and charm over competence. Then there was Vivienne, 7 years younger than me, beautiful in that effortless way that made people stop and stare. With our mother's blonde hair and bright blue eyes, she was their princess, their pride and joy, the daughter who could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, had inherited my grandmother's dark hair and quiet intensity. I was the daughter who spent more time with wood stain on her hands than makeup on her face, who preferred sketching furniture designs to attending country club events. Growing up, I learned to be small, to not take up too much space, to not ask for too much. When I told my parents I wanted to study interior design in college, my father laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but worse, a dismissive one. Elle, honey, that's a nice hobby, but what are you really going to do with your life? My mother had patted my hand and suggested I study business instead. Something practical. They refused to pay for design school. So I worked. God, did I work? I waitressed at 3 different restaurants, took out student loans, and put myself through Savannah College of Art and Design. Every furniture piece in my tiny apartment was something I had restored myself from thrift stores and estate sales. Every meal was ramen or rice, because every spare dollar went to tuition and art supplies. Vivienne, meanwhile, drifted through a sociology degree at UGA that my parents paid for in full, changed majors twice, and graduated with mediocre grades and zero direction. But she had charm. She knew how to work a room, how to make people feel important, how to smile, and say exactly what they wanted to hear. My parents adored her for it. After graduation, I moved back to Savannah, determined to make my dream a reality. I rented a small warehouse space in the historic district, a place that had once been a button factory in the 1920s. It had beautiful bones, high ceilings, and large windows that let in the most gorgeous natural light. I spent 6 months renovating it myself. I refinished the original hardwood floors on my hands and knees. I restored the exposed brick walls. I built custom shelving and display cases from reclaimed wood I salvaged from demolition sites around the city. Every piece had a story. Every corner of that studio was infused with my sweat, my tears, my vision. I named it Vance Designs. And for 3 years, I slowly, painfully built a reputation. I started with small residential projects, then worked my way up to larger homes and eventually commercial spaces. My specialty was sustainable design, creating beautiful spaces from reclaimed materials, breathing new life into pieces that others had discarded. It wasn't just about aesthetics for me. It was about honoring the past, about showing that beauty could be responsible, that luxury didn't have to mean waste. My parents never visited my studio. Not once in 3 years. They never asked about my work, never expressed any interest in my projects. When I tried to share my excitement about landing a new client or completing a challenging project, my mother would change the subject to talk about Vivienne's latest boyfriend or social event. My father would nod absently and return to his phone. I learned to stop sharing. Vivienne, however, had started dropping by my studio more frequently about 6 months before everything fell apart. At first, I was touched. I thought maybe, finally, my little sister was taking an interest in my life. She would bring coffee, ask questions about my projects, the flip through my design portfolios with what seemed like genuine admiration. Elle, you're so talented, she would gush. I don't know how you come up with these ideas. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I missed. The way she would take photos of everything in my studio, the way she would ask pointed questions about my design process, my suppliers, my pricing structure, the way she would accidentally meet my clients when they came in for consultations. But I was lonely. I had been the overlooked daughter for so long that any attention, even from Vivienne, felt like a gift. I was stupid enough to trust her. The antique auction in New York had been important. I was bidding on several pieces for the Sterling project, a massive farmhouse restoration that would have put Vance Designs on the map. Mrs. Sterling, a sophisticated woman in her 60s with impeccable taste, had found me through a referral and had been impressed by my portfolio. The contract was worth 6 figures, and it would open doors to the kind of high-end clients I had been dreaming of. I had spent 3 days in Manhattan, staying in a cheap hostel, attending previews, and strategizing my bids. I had been successful too, winning a gorgeous Victorian settee and a pair of French armchairs that would be perfect for the Sterling's formal parlor. I drove back to Savannah, exhausted but exhilarated, ready to show Mrs. Bregan Sterling photos of my acquisitions. I arrived at my studio around 9 in the evening, later than I had planned. The moment I unlocked the door and stepped inside, something felt wrong. The air itself felt different, violated somehow. The familiar scent of wood, oil, and leather that usually welcomed me was overpowered by a heavy floral perfume I didn't recognize. Chanel no. Woo. Vivienne's signature scent. My vintage burgundy armchair, the one I had spent weeks reupholstering by hand, wasn't in its usual spot by the window. It had been moved to the center of the studio, positioned awkwardly. My design sketches, which I always kept in neat portfolios on my drafting table, were scattered and disorganized. And then I saw it. A designer dress. A pale pink Reformation number that cost more than my monthly rent, draped carelessly over my leather sofa. My heart started pounding. I called out, "Hello, is someone here?" The sound of footsteps came from my private office at the back of the studio, the small room where I met with clients and kept all my sensitive project files. The door opened, and Vivienne emerged. Her blonde hair tousled, her makeup smudged, wearing one of my work shirts over a lacy bralette and jeans. She was holding her phone and looked momentarily startled to see me. "Elle, oh my God. You're back early. I thought you weren't coming home until tomorrow," she stammered, her eyes darting around the studio. "What are you doing here?" "Viv," I asked, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. "And why does my studio look like a hurricane hit it?" She laughed, that tinkling little laugh she used when she was trying to charm her way out of trouble. "Oh, I'm so sorry about the mess. I was just, I was checking on the studio for you while you were gone, making sure everything was secure. You know, and then I had this spontaneous idea for a photo shoot. You know how I've been trying to build my Instagram presence, and I thought your studio had such great lighting and aesthetic. so I called in a photographer friend to take some shots. No big deal. Every word out of her mouth made my blood pressure rise. You had a photo shoot. In my studio, without asking me. I didn't think you'd mind, we're sisters. Elle, what's yours is mine. Right, family shares. She was using that pouty voice now. The one that had always worked on our parents. I wanted to scream, but years of being the difficult daughter had taught me to swallow my anger. Viv, you need to leave. Now. And take your dress and whatever mess you made with you. God. Elle, you're so uptight I was doing you a favor. Actually, getting your studio some exposure on social media. But whatever. I'll leave. She grabbed her dress, snatched her expensive handbag off my desk, and flounced out, leaving the door wide open behind her. I stood there in the middle of my violated studio, trying to process what had just happened. Then I noticed the professional camera sitting on my desk, still plugged into its charger. A memory card was sticking out of the side. My hands shook as I removed it and inserted it into my laptop. Hundreds of photos loaded onto the screen. Vivienne, posing in every corner of my studio. Vivienne, holding up pieces I had designed and built. Vivienne, sitting at my grandmother's drafting table like she owned it. In every single photo, she looked like the creative genius behind the space. The next morning, I was awakened by a frantic call from Chloe Martinez, my assistant and the only employee I could afford to hire part-time. Chloe was a recent design school graduate, talented and loyal, and she had become something of a friend over the past year. Elle, you need to check your phone right now. Have you seen it? Oh my God. Elle, please tell me you've seen it. Her voice was high-pitched with panic. Seen what, Chloe? Slow down. What's going on? Southern Living Design magazine, they just posted their new feature online, Elle. It's about Vivienne. They're calling her Georgia's new design prodigy. My stomach dropped. I fumbled for my iPad with shaking hands and pulled up the magazine's website, and there it was. The article that would change everything. Vivienne Vance, Georgia's rising design star, sustainable vision and unique style. The main photo showed Vivienne in my studio, wearing a chic, black turtleneck and statement earrings. Her hand resting on my grandmother's drafting table. She was smiling at the camera with an expression of serene confidence, like she belonged there. I scrolled down, each line feeling like a knife to my gut. The article gushed about Viv's innovative approach to sustainable design, her eye for reclaimed materials, and her unique ability to blend vintage charm with modern sensibility. They featured photos of several of my completed projects, including the sterling farmhouse consultation mock-ups that I had left in my studio. Each one was credited as early work from the Vance Designs portfolio, showcasing Viv's emerging talent. But the worst, the absolute worst, was the photo of my college capstone project. My reading nook, the piece I had poured my heart into, the design that had earned me the highest marks in my graduating class, the piece that still sat in a corner of my studio because I couldn't bear to part with it. The caption read Viv's capstone project from her design studies, a sustainable reading nook crafted from reclaimed materials. This early piece showcases the environmental consciousness that defines her work today. I felt like the room was spinning. Vivienne had never studied design. She had a sociology degree and had bounced between retail jobs and social media influencer attempts for the past 3 years. And yet here she was, in a major design magazine, being celebrated for MY work. My vision, my blood, sweat, and tears. My phone rang. It was Mrs. Sterling. With trembling fingers, I answered. Elle Vance speaking. Ms. Vance. This is Catherine Sterling. I'm calling regarding our project. Her voice was cool, formal. This wasn't the warm-eyed, enthusiastic client I had been working with for months. Yes. Mrs. Sterling. I actually just returned from New York and acquired some beautiful pieces for your parlor. I can't wait to show you the photos. There was a pause, an uncomfortable, loaded pause. I'm afraid that won't be necessary. Miss Vance. My husband and I have decided to terminate our contract with Vance Designs. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'm sorry. What, Mrs. X. Sterling? I don't understand. We've been working together for months. You loved the designs. What changed? We saw the article in Southern Living Design this morning, Abu Vivienne Vance. We were quite impressed with her fresh approach and her sustainable vision. She seems like she would be a better fit for our historic property. We've already reached out to her, and she's agreed to take on the project. I'm sure you understand. It's nothing personal. Just business. Nothing personal. Just business. The words echoed in my head as the call ended. My biggest project. My breakthrough opportunity. Given to my sister, the sister who had never designed a single room in her life, the sister who had stolen my identity, my portfolio, my entire career in one calculated move. I called Vivienne immediately. She answered on the third ring, her voice sickeningly sweet. Elle, hi, did you see the article? Isn't it amazing? What did you do? I could barely get the words out through my rage. Vivienne, what the hell did you do? What do you mean I did us a favor? I got Vance Designs some major publicity. You should be thanking me. Thanking you, Viv. You took credit for my work. My designs. My projects. My entire portfolio. And now you've stolen my client. She had the audacity to laugh. Stolen Elle. Don't be so dramatic. The Sterlings called me. I didn't go looking for them. And technically, it's called Vance Designs. Right. We're both Vances. I'm just helping the family business. There is no family business. This is MY Studio, MY Work. You have no right to any of it. Oh, please, Elle. You've always been so possessive. I was just trying to help you get some recognition. You're terrible at self-promotion. You hide away in that dusty studio like some kind of hermit. I'm good with people. I know how to sell a vision. The magazine contacted me after seeing my Instagram posts from your studio. They were interested in the Vance Design story, so I gave them one. You lied to them. You claimed my college project as yours. You pretended to be a designer when you've never studied design a day in your life. Details. Elle. It's all about the story. The brand. And honestly, I've learned so much from watching you these past few months. I basically know how to do what you do now. It's not that complicated. I hung up on her. I was shaking so violently, I could barely hold my phone. Chloe arrived at the studio 10 minutes later, finding me sitting on the floor in the middle of the space, surrounded by the evidence of Vivienne's betrayal. She sat down next to me and put her arm around my shoulders. What do you want to do? She asked quietly. I want to kill her, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Then I took a deep breath. But first, I'm going to my parents' house. They need to know what their precious daughter has done. I drove to my parents' sprawling house in the Ardsley Park neighborhood, a beautiful historic area with oak-lined streets and stately homes. I'd called ahead, told my mother. I needed to talk to both of them urgently. When I arrived, they were already seated in the formal dining room, clearly in the middle of dinner. Vivienne was there too, looking fresh and pretty in a floral sundress, sipping white wine and laughing at something our father had said. The laughter died when they saw my face. Elle, sweetheart, you look terrible. Are you sick? My mother asked, her face full of concern. But not the kind of concern a mother should have. More like concern that I was going to make a scene and ruin her evening. I need to talk to all of you, I said, my voice steady, despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. I pulled out a printed copy of the magazine article and slapped it down on the dining table, right on top of someone's half-eaten salmon. Someone explained this to me. My father picked it up, adjusted his reading glasses, and smiled. Oh yes, we saw this morning. Vivienne showed us. It's wonderful. Isn't it? Our little girl is going to be famous. Wonderful, the word came out as a strangled shriek. Dad, she stole my work. Every single thing in that article is mine. My designs. My projects. My studio. My college capstone. She lied to that magazine and claimed it all as hers. My mother frowned. That same expression of disappointment she always wore when I overreacted. Elle, honey, I think you're being a bit dramatic. Vivienne explained to us that she's been helping you with the business. You've always been so bad at marketing yourself. She's just trying to get your studio some publicity. Helping me. She's not helping me. She stole my client. The Sterlings just fired me and hired her instead. Vivienne had the audacity to look hurt. L. I can't help it if they preferred my approach. Maybe they just connected better with my communication style. You can be pretty intense and off-putting with clients. I whirled on her. You don't have an approach, you don't know the first thing about interior design, you've never taken a single class. Never completed a single project. Everything in that article is a lie. That's enough. L. My father's voice boomed across the room, making me flinch despite myself. I will not have you attacking your sister in this house. Vivienne is trying to help the family name, the Vance name. Maybe if you had been more open to collaboration, more willing to let your sister participate in your business, we wouldn't be in this situation. I stared at him in disbelief. Participate? She didn't ask to participate. She stole. She lied. Don't you see what she's done? What I see, my mother said coldly, is a jealous older sister who can't stand to see her younger sister succeed. You've always been this way. L. Even when you were children. You couldn't stand when Vivienne got attention. The words felt like a slap across my face. You know what, you're right. I am jealous. I'm jealous that she gets to lie and steal and manipulate her way through life, while I work myself to the bone. And you two applaud her for it. I'm jealous that she's had everything handed to her on a silver platter, while I've had to fight for every scrap of recognition. But most of all, I'm jealous that she has parents who will defend her even when she's clearly, obviously, undeniably wrong. Elle le Margot Vance. How dare you, my mother stood up. Her face flushed with anger. After everything we've done for you, put a roof over your head, fed you, clothed you, this is how you repay us, by making accusations against your own sister. You didn't pay for my education. I said quietly. You didn't help me start my business. You didn't even visit my studio. Not once in 3 years. So I'm not sure what exactly I'm supposed to be grateful for. My father stood as well, his face thunderous. If you're going to continue with this attitude, you're no longer welcome in this house. I suggest you leave before you say something you'll regret. Before I regret? How about you? Don't you regret raising a liar and a thief? Don't you regret not supporting the daughter who actually worked for something, instead of the one who steals and manipulates? Vivienne started crying. Big dramatic tears rolling down her perfect cheeks. Elle, why are you being so mean to me? I just wanted to help. I've always looked up to you. And I thought working together would bring us closer. I looked at her, at those crocodile tears, at the performance she was putting on for our parents, and something inside me snapped. Not in a dramatic way, in a cold, clear way. I realized that I would never get through to them. They would never see Vivienne for what she really was. They would never choose me. You know what I'm done? I said calmly. I'm done trying to make you see. I'm done trying to earn your respect or approval. And I'm especially done letting this family walk all over me. I turned to leave, but Vivienne's voice stopped me. Elle, wait. Don't be like this. We're family. I looked back at her over my shoulder. Family doesn't steal from family. Viv, remember that. I walked out of that house, got in my car, and drove straight to the one place I knew I could get help. Harold Harrison's law office. Mr. Harrison was my father's age. A distinguished attorney who specialized in intellectual property law. He had been at several of my parents' parties over the years, and I remembered him once telling me, years ago at a holiday gathering, that he thought I had real talent. He had encouraged me to pursue design school when my own father had laughed it off. It was nearly 8 in the evening, but his office lights were still on. I knocked on the door, and when he opened it, seeing my tear-streaked face and obvious distress, he ushered me inside without hesitation. Elle Vance. I wondered when you might show up at my door, he said, gesturing for me to sit in one of the leather chairs in his office. I saw the article this morning. I also know your work well enough to know that wasn't your sister's doing. His words made the tears come harder. How did you know? Because I visited your studio once. About a year ago. I was looking for a designer to help with my home office renovation. I didn't hire you only because I ended up relocating offices entirely. But I remember your work, your process, your vision. That article describes projects I recognize as yours. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Tell me everything. So I did. I told him about Vivienne's visits to my studio, about the photo shoot, about the stolen credit, about the magazine article full of lies, about losing the Sterling contract, about my parents' refusal to see the truth. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. L, what you're describing is intellectual property theft, Fraude, and defamation. You have a very strong case. The question is, are you prepared for what comes next? Because if we pursue this legally, it's going to get ugly. It's going to be public. It's going to permanently damage your relationship with your family. That relationship is already damaged. I said. They made their choice. Now I'm making mine. He nodded slowly. Then, let's build your case. First thing tomorrow morning, I want you to gather every piece of evidence you can. Design sketches with dates, client contracts, emails, photographs, security footage if you have it, testimonials from professors and clients. Anything that proves the work in that article is yours. And L, I'm going to need you to be strong. They're going to fight back hard. I've been strong my whole life. I told him. Now I'm going to be smart too. That night, Chloe and I worked until dawn. We pulled every file, every design sketch, every photograph, every email. My studio had security cameras that I had installed for insurance purposes. We reviewed the footage from the day Vivienne had her photo shoot. The video showed everything. Vivienne arriving with a professional photographer, directing him to specific pieces and corners of the studio, posing with my work as if it belonged to her. Even more damning, there was footage of my mother arriving an hour later, helping to style the shots, moving furniture, and giving Vivienne coaching on how to pose. My mother had been there. She had helped orchestrate this. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. But I couldn't afford to break down. Not yet. We gathered testimonials from 3 of my college professors who confirmed that the capstone Reading Nook project had been mine, completed 5 years before Vivienne had even graduated with her sociology degree. We compiled evidence of my design process. Step by step, photos of projects from conception to completion. We found emails between me and the magazine from 6 months earlier, where I had inquired about potential features but had been told they weren't accepting new submissions. Yet somehow, Vivienne had gotten in. The next morning, exhausted but determined, I called my first client from 3 years ago, Mrs. Eleanor Wright, a sweet elderly woman for whom I had designed a cozy reading room in her Victorian home. She had been my very first commercial project, and she had recommended me to several friends afterward. Mrs. Wright, this is Elle Vance. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something. Have you been contacted by anyone claiming to be from Vance Designs, anyone other than me? There was a pause. Actually, yes. Dear, a young woman called me yesterday. Said she was your business partner. Your sister. She asked if I would be willing to provide a testimonial for some press materials she was putting together. Pretty thing. Very charming. But Elle, I told her no. Because I know you did my reading room. Not her. I was there every step of the way. I saw you sanding those built-in shelves with your own hands. Relief flooded through me. Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Would you be willing to provide a written statement to that effect? For legal purposes, Elle. What's going on? I explained the situation in broad strokes. By the end, Mrs. Wright was furious on my behalf. That girl should be ashamed of herself. And your parents should know better. Yes, I'll provide a statement. In fact, I'm going to call every single person I recommended you to and warn them about what's happening. You don't have to do that. Mrs. Wright. Yes, I do. Dear, this is wrong, and I won't stand for it. You're a talented young woman who's worked hard for everything you've achieved. I won't let some entitled little thief take that away from you. By the end of the day, I had statements from 5 former clients, all confirming that I, and I alone, had completed their projects. I had documentation proving that Vivienne had never been employed by Vance Designs, had never been paid by Vance Designs, and had never been credited on any project until the magazine article. Mr. Harrison reviewed everything I had gathered and nodded with satisfaction. This is excellent work. Elle. Now, before we proceed with legal action, I want to try one more thing. I'm going to contact the magazine directly. Sometimes these situations can be resolved with a retraction and a correction, especially when presented with irrefutable evidence. It's faster and less costly than litigation. But the magazine's response was disappointing. The editor-in-chief, a pretentious man named Garrett Whitmore, seemed more concerned with protecting the magazine's reputation than with the truth. Miss Vance. Vivienne Vance came to us with a compelling portfolio and a great story. We had no reason to doubt her credentials. If there's been some kind of misunderstanding between you and your sister, that's a family matter. Not our concern. It's not a misunderstanding, I said coldly. It's fraud. And if you don't retract that article and issue a correction, you'll be named as a co-defendant in my lawsuit. There was a long pause. Ms. Vance, I don't respond well to threats. And I don't respond well to theft. Mr. Whitmore, my attorney will be in touch. Mr. Harrison watched me hang up with a slight smile. Good. I was hoping we'd get to do this the hard way. It's much more satisfying. While we prepared the legal case, I made another decision. I was going to tell my story publicly. Mr. Harrison had connections with a public relations specialist, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in crisis management and reputation protection. When I met with her and explained the situation, her eyes lit up with barely contained fury. This is egregious, she said flatly. And it's unfortunately not uncommon in creative fields. People steal ideas, plagiarize work, and claim credit all the time. But what makes your case particularly compelling is the family angle and the fact that your parents are enabling it. People are going to eat this story up. Not because they're cruel, but because everyone understands the pain of being overlooked, becomes of having someone take credit for their hard work. So what do? You tell your truth. You tell it clearly, factually, and with receipts. We're going to create a comprehensive blog post with side-by-side comparisons of your original work and her claims. We're going to include timestamped documentation. We're going to let your former clients speak. And then we're going to share it everywhere. But you need to be prepared. This is going to blow up. It's going to be messy. Your family is going to retaliate. The internet is going to have opinions. Not all of them kind. Are you ready for that? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes. We spent the next 2 days crafting the blog post. Patricia helped me strike the right tone. Factual and firm without being vindictive. We titled it simply, The Truth About Vance Designs. In it, I laid out the timeline of events, included photos of my original design sketches with dates, shared testimonials from clients and professors, and most devastatingly, included selected stills from my studio security footage showing Vivienne's staged photoshoot with my mother's assistance. I published it at 8:00 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, simultaneously sharing it across all my social media platforms, which admittedly weren't that extensive. I had about 2,000 followers on Instagram, mostly clients, colleagues, and fellow designers. I didn't expect much. I hoped maybe a few people would see it, that it would provide some documentation of the truth for my legal case. I was wrong. Within an hour, the post had been shared over 500 times. Within 3 hours, a well-known design blogger with 500,000 followers had picked up the story. Within 6 hours, it was trending on Twitter under number Justice for L. Vance. By the end of the day, it had been shared tens of thousands of times, and journalists were reaching out to me for interviews. The response was overwhelming. Designers from all over the country, both established professionals and students, began sharing their own stories of having work stolen or credit taken by others. The design community rallied around me with a ferocity I hadn't expected. Several prominent designers publicly stated they would never work with anyone who plagiarized, naming Vivienne specifically. But the backlash against Vivienne was brutal. Her Instagram, which had been carefully curated with photos from my studio, was flooded with comments, calling her a fraud, a thief, and worse, people found her LinkedIn profile, her Facebook page, every corner of her online presence, and left scathing messages. A meme started circulating showing a split image. One side labeled expectations, with Vivienne posing prettily, the other labeled reality with a stock photo of a trash can. It was cruel. And despite everything, I felt a twinge of discomfort at the mob mentality. But I didn't ask them to stop. Because this public shaming, was the consequence of her actions. These were the people she had deceived with her lies. And they were angry about it. Vivienne's response was predictable. She posted a tearful video to her Instagram stories, her eyes red and puffy, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry if there's been any confusion. I never meant to take credit for Elle's work. I was just trying to help promote Vance Designs. And I think things got miscommunicated with the magazine. I've always been so proud of my sister and what she's accomplished. I would never intentionally hurt her. Please, can everyone just calm down? We're family, and we're going to work this out privately." The video made me laugh. A bitter, hollow laugh. Because she still couldn't admit the truth. Even caught red-handed with evidence plastered all over the internet. She couldn't say the words "I lied. I stole. I was wrong." My parents called that afternoon, both of them on speakerphone, their voices shaking with rage. My father spoke first. "Elle, what have you done? Do you have any idea the calls we've been getting? Our friends, our colleagues, everyone wants to know why our daughter is attacking her sister online. You've humiliated this entire family." "I've humiliated the family," I repeated incredulously. "Dad, Vivienne committed fraud. She stole my work. She lied to a national magazine. You could have handled this privately," my mother shrieked. "Instead, you've turned it into a spectacle. The Hendersons called me this morning. They saw the whole thing on Facebook. Do you know how mortifying that was? I tried to handle it privately. I came to your house. And you threw me out. You chose to believe Vivienne's lies over your other daughter's truth. She's your sister," my father roared. "You take care of family. You protect family. Instead, you've thrown her to the wolves. Those people online are destroying her." "She destroyed herself," I said coldly. "By lying. By stealing. Those are her consequences, not mine. If you don't take that blog post down immediately and issue an apology to your sister, you are no longer our daughter," my mother said, and her voice easy. "We will cut you off completely. No more family dinners. No more holidays. No more contact whatsoever. You'll be alone." "Elle, is that what you want?" For a moment, I felt the old fear rise up in my throat. The fear of being cast out, of being truly alone, of losing the only family I had ever known. But then I remembered the security footage of my mother helping Vivienne stage those photos. I remembered her expression of disappointment every time I shared my accomplishments. I remembered every time they had chosen Vivienne over me. Every time they had made me feel invisible and unworthy. "You know what, that sounds perfect," I said. "Because you've never really been my family anyway. Family doesn't treat people the way you've treated me. So yes, go ahead. Cut me off. I'll be fine. Better than fine. Actually." I hung up before they could respond and blocked both their numbers. Then I called Mr. Harrison. "File the lawsuit. All of it. Vivienne. The magazine. Anyone and everyone involved. I'm done being nice." The lawsuit was filed 3 days later. I sued Vivienne for intellectual property theft, fraud, and defamation. I sued the magazine for negligent publication and damage to my professional reputation. The amounts I requested in damages were substantial, but to enough to bankrupt Vivienne and make the magazine think twice about their fact-checking process. The legal proceedings that followed were grueling. Vivienne hired a lawyer, paid for by my parents, of course, who tried every tactic in the book to discredit me. They claimed I was mentally unstable, that I was jealous and vindictive, that I had given Vivienne permission to represent Vance Designs, but every claim they made crumbled in the face of the evidence. The security footage was damning. There was no way to explain away video of Vivienne staging photos in my studio, of my mother directing the shots, of both of them leaving with smug, satisfied expressions. The testimonials from my professors were ironclad, proving that the capstone project had been mine, completed years before Vivienne would have had the opportunity to claim it. The client contracts all bore my signature, my business license, my tax identification number. There was no paper trail connecting Vivienne to Vance Designs in any official capacity. The magazine's defense fell apart even faster. When they realized the extent of the evidence against them, and when they saw the negative publicity they were receiving, they quickly moved to settle out of court. They issued a full retraction, published a lengthy apology, and agreed to run a feature article about me. The Real Elle Vance. In their next issue, they also paid a substantial settlement for damages. Vivienne's case went to trial. The proceedings were covered by local news outlets and several design industry publications. I had to testify, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Sitting in that courtroom, looking at Vivienne across the room, seeing my parents in the gallery behind her, supporting her even now, when it was my turn on the stand. Mr. Harrison asked me to tell the court, in my own words, what Vivienne had taken from me. I took a deep breath and spoke directly to the judge. She didn't just take credit for some designs. I said, my voice steady. She took 3 years of my life. Every late night, every financial struggle, every sacrifice I made to build something from nothing. She took my identity as a designer, as an artist. She took the validation I had earned from my education, from my clients, from my peers. And most devastatingly, she took my trust. She was my sister. I should have been able to trust her, but she saw my vulnerability, my loneliness, my desire for family connection, and she exploited it. She weaponized it against me. I saw Vivienne's lawyer shift uncomfortably. I saw several members of the jury lean forward. And I kept going. I'm not here just for me. I'm here for every artist, every designer, every creator who has ever had their work stolen, every person who has poured their heart and soul into something, only to have someone else claim credit. This isn't just about money or recognition. It's about the principle that creativity has value, that work deserves credit, and that truth matters more than charm or connections or family loyalty. When the judge delivered the verdict 3 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Vivienne was found guilty on all counts. She was ordered to pay me substantial damages, enough to cover my legal fees, lost business opportunities, and emotional distress. She was required to issue a public apology across all the same platforms where she had originally claimed my work as her own. And most satisfying of all, she was barred from working in the interior design field professionally for 5 years. My parents sat stone-faced as the verdict was read. They didn't look at me. They didn't congratulate me. When the proceedings were over, they stood, put their arms around Vivienne, and walked out without a single glance in my direction, and I was okay with that, because I finally understood that their love had always been conditional, and the conditions were impossible for me to meet. I wasn't pretty enough, charming enough, compliant enough. I was never going to be Vivienne, and trying to earn their approval was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. The aftermath of the trial was surreal. The design community embraced me in ways I had never imagined. Established designers reached out with collaboration offers. Design schools invited me to speak about intellectual property protection and the realities of starting a creative business. My client waiting list went from 0 to several months long within weeks. The article in Southern Living Design ran 2 months after the trial concluded. This time, the headline read, Elle Vance, the architect of her own justice. It was a feature spread about my journey, my real journey, with photos of my actual work, quotes from my actual clients, and a frank discussion about the realities of theft in creative industries. The journalist who wrote it was thorough and compassionate, and she didn't shy away from the ugliness of what had happened, but she focused on the resilience and the rebuilding. The Sterling family reached out 3 days after the article was published. Mrs. Sterling called me personally, her voice thick with emotion and embarrassment. Elle, my husband and I owe you the most profound apology. We were taken in by a con artist, and we abandoned a talented designer who had done nothing but excellent work for us. If you would be willing to forgive us, we would like to offer you the farmhouse project again, with a substantially increased budget to make up for the time and opportunities you lost. I accepted, not because I needed their approval, but because that project was genuinely close to my heart, and I still had vision for that beautiful historic property. The farmhouse renovation took 6 months and became one of my most celebrated projects, featured in 3 additional design magazines and winning a regional design award. The money from the lawsuit, the magazine settlement, and the influx of new clients allowed me to expand Vance Designs in ways I had only dreamed about. I moved to a larger studio space, a converted textile mill with soaring ceilings and enormous windows that flooded the space with light. I hired a full staff, including Chloe, who became my project manager. I brought on 2 junior designers fresh out of SCAD, talented women who reminded me of my younger self, hungry and passionate and full of ideas. And I started a mentorship program. It was something Patricia Chen had suggested during one of our post-lawsuit debriefing conversations. "You have a platform now," she had said. "A story that resonated with people. Use it for good." The Vance Designs Mentorship Initiative provided free education, /did, resources, and support for aspiring designers from underprivileged backgrounds or those who had experienced intellectual property theft. We offered workshops on protecting your creative work, navigating the design industry, and building a sustainable business. We connected mentees with established professionals, provided portfolio development assistance, and created a community where young designers could learn and grow without fear of exploitation. The program attracted attention from design organizations and even caught the eye of Maxwell Thorne, a prominent architect I had admired from afar for years. Maxwell reached out to tell me that Vivian had attempted to connect with him years ago at a design conference, claiming to be a rising designer and asking invasive questions about his process and his projects. He had found her behavior odd at the time, overly familiar and inappropriately probing, but hadn't thought much of it until he saw the news about my case. "I wanted you to know you weren't her only target," he told me over coffee in my new studio. "She had a pattern of behavior, a pattern of trying to attach herself to successful designers and absorb their knowledge, their connections, their credibility. What she did to you was just the most egregious example." Maxwell and I ended up collaborating on several large commercial projects over the following months. He was generous with his knowledge, quick to credit collaborators, and fiercely protective of intellectual property rights. He became something of a mentor to me, and later, a genuine friend. It was refreshing to work with someone who understood the value of creative work, who respected the process, and who believed in lifting others up rather than stealing their light. As for Vivienne, I heard about her life in fragments, mostly through the grapevine. The judgment against her had been financially devastating. My parents had paid her legal fees, but the damages award cleaned out whatever savings she had. Her social media presence never recovered. The design community has a long memory, and her name became synonymous with plagiarism and fraud. She attempted to reinvent herself in various other fields: marketing, event planning, real estate. But everywhere she went, her reputation followed her. I heard she eventually moved to Florida, got married to someone she met online, and works in retail management now. Sometimes I wonder if she ever really understood the magnitude of what she did. If she ever felt genuine remorse beyond the remorse of getting caught. But mostly, I don't think about her at all anymore. She's a chapter in my life that's closed. My parents never reached out to apologize, never acknowledged their role in enabling Vivienne's behavior, never congratulated me on my success or expressed pride in what I had built, despite them. Not because of them. About a year after the trial, I received a letter from my mother. Not an apology, but a plea for reconciliation couched in victim language. She wrote about how hard the past year had been for them, how they had lost friends, how my father's business had suffered from the negative publicity, how difficult it was to watch Vivienne struggle. There was no acknowledgement of my pain, no recognition of what had been taken from me, just a request that I be the bigger person and let bygones be bygones so we could be a family again. I read the letter once, then put it in a file folder marked family that I kept in a locked drawer. I didn't respond. What would I say? That I forgave them for choosing my sister over me at every turn, that I understood why they had enabled her to steal my entire career, that I was willing to subject myself to that dynamic again? No. I had built a new life, surrounded by people who actually valued me. Chloe, who had stood by me through everything. Marcus Chen, one of my junior designers who brought fresh perspective and incredible talent to every project. Maxwell, who taught me that professional relationships could be built on mutual respect. The clients who trusted me with their spaces and their stories. The mentees who looked up to me and saw possibility in their own futures. This was my family now. The family I chose. The family that chose me back. 2 years after the trial, I received an unexpected visitor at my studio. Mrs. Eleanor Wright. My very first client. The woman who had provided testimony supporting my case. She was accompanied by a younger woman, maybe mid-20s, who looked nervous and excited all at once. Dear, I'd like you to meet my granddaughter, Sophia. She just graduated from design school, and she's looking for a mentor. I told her there was no one better than you. Looking at Sophia's eager face, at her portfolio clutched in her hands, at the hope and determination in her eyes, I felt something shift inside me. This was what it was all about. Not revenge. Not even justice, really. It was about creating a world where talented people got the credit they deserved, where hard work was rewarded, where truth mattered more than connections or charm. It's nice to meet you, Sophia, I said, reaching out to shake her hand. Let's see what you've got. Today, 4 years after everything fell apart and came back together, I stand in my studio, Vance Designs, and I can finally say I'm proud of what I see. The space is filled with natural light, surrounded by pieces I've designed, built, and created with my own hands and vision. The walls are covered with framed magazine features, industry awards, and photos of completed projects, but my favorite thing on those walls is a framed certificate from the local design association, naming Vance Designs as the winner of the Community Impact Award for our mentorship program. I'm 32 years old. I'm successful beyond what I imagined possible when I was that lonely, overlooked daughter, trying desperately to be seen. I own my studio outright. I have a team of talented designers working with me. I have clients who respect my work and my vision. I have a community that values what I create. And I have something else. Something I never had growing up. I have my self-respect. I have boundaries. I know my worth. And I don't accept less than what I deserve. I walked away from a family that couldn't see my value. And I found a tribe that does. Do I still hurt sometimes? Yes. There are holidays when I feel the absence of family traditions, when I see other people posting photos with their parents and siblings, and I feel that old familiar ache. There are times when I accomplish something significant, and my first instinct is still to want to call my parents, to share my joy with them. Before I remember, they were never really on my side, but those moments pass, because I've learned that some people will never give you what you need, no matter how much you accomplish or how much you prove yourself. And that's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on them and their inability to see past their own biases and blind spots. I look around my studio, at the life I've built from the ashes of betrayal, and I think about all the young designers out there who might be facing similar situations, who might be dealing with plagiarism, with family members who undermine them, with people who try to steal their light. This is my message to them. Your work has value. Your creativity matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. And if the people around you can't see that, if they try to diminish you or steal from you or make you doubt yourself, you have the power to walk away. You have the power to build something new, something true, something that reflects who you really are. Justice isn't always served in courtrooms. Sometimes justice is simply living well, creating freely, and surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your success rather than trying to claim it as their own. I designed this life myself, piece by piece, from reclaimed materials and second chances, and I wouldn't change a single thing. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had someone in your life take credit for your hard work? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? What would you do if your own sister stole everything you built? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel less alone in your own struggles, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything. And together, we can build a community that values authenticity, honesty, and the real people behind the work. Thank you for listening to my story.